Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of Wilbur Talks FPL. Hopefully, 13 isn't unlucky for us tonight, where we talk everything the Premier League in general and obviously focusing on FPL at the same time. So, this week we are back, the full complement, as we should say, with myself and Charlie and Sam. How are you both doing?
Yeah, all good here, thanks.
Very well, thank you.
Good stuff. So Sam finally returned after international duty. The plane was a bit delayed on last pod, so he is back, and we are full complement.
Yes. Delighted to be back.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad because it was over the international break, so we kind of got an idea of what your game week score was the previous week, so not as bad. So I think we're going to hop straight into that and have a look at how we did in the previous game week. So how did your game week go, Sam?
My game week went pretty well, actually, to be honest. I scored 75 points in game week 12 against an average of 57. No more rookie errors with bench and Cancelo, that's for sure. So the bench and goalkeeper in general were the source of a lot of the points for my game week. Chilwell with 9, Mendy with 6 clean sheets there, obviously Chilwell with an assist. And then Cancelo and Trent with 2 exceptional returns, 12 and 15 respectively. A little bit disappointed with the midfield. I did have Rafinha in midfield to start with. Obviously, he didn't play, and just shows what I've been harping on about, that if you have players that on your bench who are just getting guaranteed to give you those 2 points, those 2 points could make a big difference at the end of the season. So Brownhill coming in picking up 2. No returns from Trossard or Son, who I actually bought in last week. I was very, very close to bringing in Jota, but I wasn't thrilled about the thought of the triple Liverpool, so I went for Son and wish I'd gone for Jota in hindsight. But no, I went for Son. He blanked, and then Salah obviously getting his goal with the armband, and Jimenez scoring against West Ham. West Ham finally losing against Wolves, so hopefully one of those two was going to score. So I thought I'd ride them out for this week and take a chance on that. So yeah, no, overall decent game week. Still top of the tree. Nice to actually extend the gap a little bit. After last week, it's 6 points extension over Mr. Marsh in second. But the old Hills Donator is creeping up in third place. I must say, I'm keeping a close eye on Rob. He's going to be there or thereabouts at the end as well. Don't you worry. But Champions of Europe, Peter Bradley, where are you? Where are you, Pete? King of FPL. Know your FPL after game week 2. 6th in the league. Disaster. No, it's been a good week. I'm pretty pleased with it, to be fair.
Don't be shouting him out if I'm below him. That just makes me look even worse. But you're solid. I think you're around a similar kind of ranking. You're still about 13, 14k, so still very solid. You just need to edge into that 10k for that celebration that we've got on hold when you get in it.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be hard, though, getting in the 10k now, because a lot of the teams are sort of, as I'm sure we'll pick up on, are morphing towards template style. So it's hard to get those differentials in that are going to pick up the points, but we'll do what we can. See where we go. Yeah. Got a few tricks up the sleeve yet.
Yeah, early on, a lot of football to be played still. Moving to you, Charlie. So Sam kind of touched on you might have got a 6 point advantage on you there, but how did your game week go?
Yeah, if other than the fact that Sam did beat me this week, it still went pretty well. It ended on 69, which above the average. So again, can't really complain with that. Pretty obviously, like Sam kind of alluded to, we've all got fairly similar teams now. So most of my sort of key players were the same ones that Sam's got. The only different one really being Gallagher, who I brought in this week for Saka. It seemed a bit of a no-brainer. And Gallagher got an assist, which was good. And yeah, just still with this striker dilemma, getting no points. I chose to bench Vardy up against Chelsea, and then he obviously ended up coming on anyway because of both Diaz and Rafinha not playing. But it feels like he's just going to be sticking around in my team now because, one, he's someone that I don't think many people in our league have, and two, he seems to be of the strikers in terms of fixtures that I actually don't mind having. He's one of the better ones in terms of fixtures, so we just kind of hope for something to come through because of that. So yeah, reasonable. keep carrying over this extra transfer. So I'm still on 2 free transfers this week and not really sure what to do with them. But I guess we'll get to that later in the pod. But yeah, all in all, pretty decent week, and yeah, just happy to keep kind of that sort of consistency going.
When Diaz was benched, I just was flashing back to the last pod where I was saying Cancelo's really guaranteed more minutes than Diaz, and it just literally happened straight away. And I said I wasn't keen on Foden as well, so I think it's one of the only times where I kind of got City right, which we all struggle with. Well, I will say I did get Ferran Torres right early in the season, but not that anyone went there. But yeah, it's a strange one with Diaz, but we'll touch on that kind of rotation as we go forward. So just touching my team as well, plumb in the middle of you two, 3 less than Sam, 3 more than Charlie. I think literally it's based on who I had on the bench coming on. So literally the one time I didn't play Semedo, we decided to get a clean sheet, and luckily came off my bench for Rafinha to get 6 points. But then same again, Trent, Cancelo, Salah, and then Tony and Gallagher were little returns, but not a lot. I'll shout out to Ben Foster for the assist, obviously, against my own team, but we'll take it. But yeah, all around the same ballpark, only separated by 6 points. So hopefully we'll catch up. The next target, as you mentioned, in the league, got to take over Pete, and then we've got the whole bragging rights to be above him. Sure, it'll come eventually. And obviously the wild card is still in hand, so a few weeks to have fun with that. We'll touch on that as we go through. So we've kind of mentioned a few of the star players, so we'll have a look at some results that we had in the previous week. Shall I go to you two first? Do you want to have a nice little conversation about the Liverpool-Arsenal game? Do you want to start, Charlie?
Yeah, if I have to. No, I mean, it kind of went as expected, really. I don't think there would be many realistic Arsenal fans out there that were expecting much from this game. And kind of, as I was saying last week, I think it was more about the performance of the team than the result, which arguably actually you'd say second half. I think first half actually Arsenal weren't bad. They did apply themselves well, just not necessarily in the final third, and kind of lacked the kind of killer instinct up top that we know Liverpool have. And I did think that Arsenal kind of were a bit more aggressive than I was expecting to be. It was, picked up in commentary about the comparisons between how Arsenal pressing compared to how Man United pressed when they played Liverpool, and how Arsenal's was much more consistent and more energy put into it compared to Man United, who were just sort of jogging and one man running and the rest not. So yeah, I didn't think the first half was too bad, and obviously Ramsdale had a really good game up to that point as well. And then, yeah, quite frustrating conceding that set piece goal not long before half time. And then, yeah, second half, obviously it just ended up Liverpool doing Liverpool things and putting Arsenal to the sword, really. But yeah, I'm quite sort of calm about it, really. I think the context or how this game gets framed is going to be more important about what happens at the coming weekend, and whether Arsenal use it as a sort of a point to sort of push back into what we were doing in the last 8-9 games of putting away teams that we should be beating. So we've got Newcastle this coming weekend, and if we can just get back onto what we've been doing lately and sort of going fairly comfortable wins, then I think that then says something good about the team in terms of how they come back from this poor result, but one that was expected. Whereas if we then start struggling and look like there's a lack of confidence against Newcastle, then it starts saying, well, after one defeat, then that's kind of shaking the whole team up. And yeah, obviously it would be nice going into the midweek game against Man United, which I would say arguably is much more important to Arsenal's season than the game against Liverpool in terms of obviously where all the teams are going to be ending up or fighting for in terms of places. But yeah, I think from an Arsenal perspective, as I say, kind of as expected, and not getting too sort of down about anything that happened there. And I think you've just got to praise Liverpool, the form they're in. Obviously they've had those results against West Ham and Brighton, which didn't go their way as they wanted to, but the quality in that team is just clear for anyone to see. So yeah, as I say, not too down about it, and fair play to Liverpool doing what they do.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't gauge the season based on that fixture. I think the top 3 are so far ahead. If you get any points against them, it's a bonus, isn't it, really? So I think like the next 3 or so games will kind of more give us a gauge of where you're going to be this season, especially, well, even the Newcastle game is quite, like, it could be a difficult one. They look decent the first game with Hull, but then you've also got United and then Everton away. So that'll be a better gauge to see where you are. So I'm not going to say it about the United one, but I'm sure we'll get to that one in a few weeks or so. How did you see it from your side then, Sam?
I mean, yeah, it was a funny one, wasn't it? It was almost a bit of a reality check for Arsenal, I think. I remember we were talking last week about, it might have been the week before actually, about Arsenal's sort of ambitions, sort of getting in around that top 4. And I do genuinely think there is a chance that Arsenal could get in and around the top 4. I think I said if I was going to put some money on at the time that I'd probably put it on West Ham. But, given how inconsistent Man United have been, West Ham obviously losing to Wolves. I mean, Arsenal got thumped by Liverpool, and it's just a bit of, like you said, we summarised it pretty well there. That the top 3 are almost in another league to the rest of the league, unfortunately. But yeah, no, it was a good performance. I actually thought there were parts of Arsenal's game that they did pretty well. They got themselves into good positions. They were disciplined in their shape. But then they just, when they got into the shape and the positions where if they'd have then gone on to press, then they'd have probably had good opportunities to win the ball back in good areas. They just didn't press. And I think they just got worn down by the intensity of Liverpool's passing and pressing, a few individual mistakes. I definitely think it was an improved Arsenal from the Arsenal that I've seen at Anfield over the last couple of seasons. But yeah, Liverpool were too good. And another masterclass from Mr. Alexander-Arnold. The guy is just on another level good. And a big response from Liverpool after a disappointing result against West Ham. Much needed. Back in and amongst the goals. All in all, a good result. I don't think Arsenal can be too down on themselves, but it is a little bit of a reality check as to quite how much they've still got to do to compete against the big 3, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like you said, much needed win coming back from the international break, and it puts you in that good spirits going into the various fixtures over Christmas. So you'll be obviously hoping, from your point of view, to go strong into them to keep up with the other 2. It's ding dong in a minute between the 3 here, so good to watch as a neutral at least. And as me and Charlie probably won't be involved in that top 3, but you never know. I think we're going to touch on. Well, we've touched on both of your teams. I'm going to talk about my team, which it's strange in a way. I don't think I've ever celebrated like a team scoring against me as much, like against United, as in that game, which was a bit crazy. I've told you like the last few weeks or so the mixed feelings about wanting Ollie out, and obviously eventually it has happened thanks to that result. So it's kind of I think I've never been as happy to lose 4-1 in my life, so we will take it on the chin, the fact that we got Ollie out finally, as long as we don't end up with Carrick at the wheel. But that's kind of a different discussion. But as we've kind of touched on before, this decision should have been made before. It would have made sense to make it that like 2 weeks earlier, so they could get a manager in for over the international break. Obviously, it hasn't happened. Again, as we've seen most of the season, just terrible performance in that game, but hopefully moving forward in the right direction. But it's hard to gauge until we see if we get an interim, if we're getting a proper manager in. Lots of rumours flying around at the minute. And as I touched on, at least Ben Foster got an assist. I got some benefit out of that game. And just touching on, obviously we played in the Champions League last night as well. We were pretty terrible again, so it was very much exactly the same as it has been. But then Ronaldo bailing us out in the Champions League again. And I have to mention a bit of Fred with his great pressure. So hopefully we'll get a manager in soon, and we might see a turn in fortunes, hopefully in time for the Arsenal game, but I can't see it happening that quick with our board. But finally got what we needed. Did either of you wanted to say anything about Ollie? Were you crying when you saw that news? I'm sure you was all happy when Ollie was at the wheel.
We've probably said a lot about Ollie up to this point, so maybe not go too into it. But I think that the whole situation is quite ridiculous. Like, there's all this talk about or it seems to be really well known now that the board are looking for an interim and then a head coach or like a proper manager at the end of the season. It just feels like that's such an odd route to go down. But also, having said that, as long as Carrick's still in charge, it feels like. But he was basically just the assistant anyway, whilst Ollie was under. It doesn't feel like anything would change as long as Carrick's managing it. So, in my opinion, it would just carry on being effectively a team of individuals. It won't be any real tactical genius, or it'll be very basic tactics, and it will be down to those individual quality players to win the game. So, I don't see. I only see picking up wins against the. Well, I guess you could have said this game. It should have been a game that you could have won, but I don't feel like anything will change really for the rest of the season, because if it's going to just be an interim manager, it won't be one of these top class managers. So I'm all for that, to be honest. But yeah, it was a bit sad to see Ole go, because I was enjoying that demise of Man United for a while.
Yeah, there's very much a lot of talk about the interim stuff. I understand why they're doing it, but obviously it's not the best solution, because their main two targets they would like are obviously at clubs at the minute, which you could go back to saying why didn't they do it earlier, and then if they wanted Conte, for example, could have got in there before Spurs. But it's kind of mixed. You understand why they're doing it, because currently the top two is Pochettino and Ten Hag, so they're both in roles. There was rumours about Poch wanting to come to United, and then Zidane will end up going to PSG, but that's very much nonsense, I think, in the middle of a season. Fair play. If he wants to come out and say he wants to come to United, I'm sure we're not going to say no, but I don't see that happening in the near future at all. Was there anything you wanted to touch on there, Sam? Or should we just move on to some other ones?
I won't spend too much on it. I've made my feelings on the situation clear for a long time, but the most profitable sports bet I've probably ever made in terms of the rolling year-on-year, Manchester United will never win a trophy under Ollie. And what do you know? It's come to fruition. So, listen, I think we've made enough of a case for why Ollie was underqualified, and therefore, as a result, actually probably overachieved when you look at the grand scheme of things as to what he actually managed to do, given his managerial credentials. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised, actually, off the back of it. The last thing I'll say is if that's a bit of a tip of the iceberg job, and it just exposes some, sort of to what Charlie was alluding, that team has more fractures in it than we thought. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, obviously, a shame for us that he's no longer at the wheel.
Well, that's a step in the right direction from my point of view, but still a long way to go to get to where we'll hopefully end up in the end. So I wanted to touch on quite a few games that we had over the weekend, especially 2 sets of 3-3s. I don't think if we was predicting some of these results going into the weekend, we would have had many down as 3-3. So I'm going to say there's a lot of highlights for both of these games. Did you catch the highlights any more detailed analysis on any of these games, Charlie? Was there anything that really stood out for you, apart from the amount of goals, for example, in the Burnley, Palace and the Newcastle, Brentford games?
Yeah, I mean, particularly the Newcastle one, because of the whole narrative of Eddie Howe coming in, obviously, and that kind of, if it wasn't for the other game having finished 3-3 as well, you would say that kind of speaks of a very typical Eddie Howe type game of just being lots of goals, no real defensive quality at all. But then I think that's kind of why Newcastle suits him so well, because they're not very good defensively and have some good attacking talent. So that feels like an Eddie Howe sort of team. And again, I think it just kind of it exposed both teams defensively, Newcastle and Brentford. They've both, I mean, Newcastle kind of all season, and Brentford of late have really struggled defensively. And this game kind of showed it in spades, really, just kind of end to end, no real control of the game from either side, and that seems to be what they're lacking. I feel like they're both in a position that they're okay enough to feel like they should be able to stay up, but the issue being where we're seeing these other wins being picked up from the likes of Norwich and Villa. I still feel like Norwich are way off, but obviously that's a really great start to come in for Dean Smith and the quality that he's got. So I think I think the the teams just above the drop-off point will start getting a bit nervous about how some of these results are going, and how these new managers are having a good effect on their teams. I think, just touching on that, Leeds in particular as well, actually, how they just seem to be constantly struggling. They are getting players starting to come back a bit, which is obviously good for them, because we've talked a lot about how it's been kind of a Rafinha team or nothing. But that being said, they're about to head into a really tough run of fixtures, so it might get to the point where Leeds are really struggling and even get into the relegation zone. But as a team with, I feel like they're much more comfortable in their manager and able to sort of carry on. Under Bielsa, they won't. There's no chance they get rid of him. So they've kind of got philosophy that they'll stick to, and I think that'll see them through. But yeah, it is just really interesting how these games just kind of pop up and just trigger these changes that have ended up with the managers coming in and looking real good. Actually, I thought Norwich in particular played well against. I mentioned before. I think it was last week or the week before about how Southampton, whilst we all know because of Livramento about how we can get these. They've had more clean sheets than maybe we'd expect. Actually, defensively, they can be a bit suspect, particularly the keeper McCarthy. Because once you get, because they play this 4-4-2 so consistently, once you get past that middle, really ends up being a middle two. You can really get in and behind them, and that's what Norwich seem to do. So, yeah, all in all, it was really great. Those sort of 3:00 fixtures, just goals galore, and yeah, really great to follow along. To be honest, that's exactly what the Premier League's all about.
Especially with so many games at 3:00 as well, and just going madness on there. And I think on the other 3-3, but aside that, I kind of touched on about Burnley last week that there seemed to be a different animal at home, and they just seem to play well. Especially the last 2 or 3 games, there's been like free-flowing football, which you don't associate with Burnley. So we've seen a bit more change in style. I know Cornet has changed that style a bit, and he's not looking about to pick at the minute. To be fair, I just wanted to touch on your Leeds as well, because I don't know how much you saw of that Leeds game, but the first half of that game, Leeds were really good, considering all the injuries they had. So I was quite impressed, considering they didn't have Rafinha in there, because he seems to carry, like you kind of mentioned. And I've seen that Rafinha looks like he's going to be fine for the next game at the weekend. And I also saw that Bamford's back in training, but it's probably going to be a few weeks away. He's actually back in training, so that's definitely what they need. I think they seem to suffer they've kind of got that spine of the team. I think if you take like Phillips, Rafinha and Bamford out of that team, there's not a huge amount about them. They need to bulk up the squad really to make them more effective. So when they're losing, I think they've probably had all of those 3 missing in a few of the occasions, or just been carried by Rafinha. So once they get that span of the team back, I think they'll be okay. I think I saw Phillips did a decent job on Kane as well, neutralising him. Not that he needs much neutralising when he plays for Spurs, but that's a different issue. What did you make of all the goal scoring that was going on, Sam? And I was going to mention as well, was it strange seeing Gerrard on the touchline in the Premier League again?
I wouldn't say necessarily strange seeing him on the touchline in general, because obviously he's done very well for himself at Rangers and has ultimately earned his opportunity to come to the Premier League and do his thing. Did I expect Villa to beat Brighton 2-0? No, not at all. Great for Villa to keep a clean sheet. I hope Gerrard does well. Obviously, I think it's inevitable that at some point in the future he'll end up in the dugout at Anfield, but there's a long way to go before that happens yet. And he's got a great entry level at Villa to come in and do his thing and see what he's made of. But yeah, it was a great advocate for the Premier League. Again, I say it most weeks, but just goals in every game. Quite literally, I thought actually I thought the Leeds Spurs was a really good watch, to be honest. In the Leeds, like you say, were really good in the first half, and Spurs showed a bit of grit in the second half, which they don't tend to do too often. So that was good for them. But yeah, other than that, it's just a really good weekend of Premier League football. Lots of goals in everywhere. Yeah, not really too much else to add that hasn't been added already, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to touch on your 2 title rivals as well. Both of them getting 3, well, all of you getting comfortable wins over the weekend, to be fair. And I wanted to kind of touch on the defensive power we're seeing at the minute. I feel like the template is going more to definitely a 4 at the back, even a 5 at the back. I don't know what you guys are thinking at the minute. So if obviously we're getting mega points, we've seen Trent, Cancelo, both the Chelsea fullbacks. In your mind at the minute, Sam, would you say be investing money in defence, because the forwards don't particularly seem to be creating great value at this minute? Would you
I
be
think so.
against it?
No, I think that's the way to go at the minute. There's not too much value in the forwards. If I had 2 free transfers this week, I would be taking Antonio out for a fodder striker, and be bringing in maybe just another defender from one of the big 3. Really, I think that's the way to go. Pack the defence out. I don't really like Liveramento's fixture next week away at Liverpool. I think that's just going to be 0% chance of a clean sheet. They might get, you wouldn't think they're going to get anything out of that game, but they're probably not going to get a clean sheet. So yeah, I think something to be done there, because obviously it looks like Chilwell might have picked up an injury playing for Chelsea last night. I think we'll touch on that. And Rafinha with a little yellow triangle as well. So might be the first week that we look at potentially a 4-point hit, to be honest. So we'll see what happens there. But I definitely think the strategy is pack out. There's a lot. I was listening to you guys last week on when I was listening back to the pod, talking about the comparative value between having an Antonio or like a striker in your team and one of these fullbacks that's giving you attacking contributions. Like even Livermento is probably going to be outscoring a decent portion of FPL strikers at the minute, over the course of like a 3-4 game week period, which kind of says it all, in that the shift is certainly towards those 4-5 back formations.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking, I think we could touch on it last time, when I get to the wildcard moment, potentially going for a fodder kind of striker rather than a midfielder, because that's what I've tended to go for, to give me that flexibility if I wanted to go for like a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3. So I'm very much considering that, and I think you could even just be going up to a 5, or like between the 5 and the 5.5 million for your strikers, because you've got like your Dennis and your King who could return every now and then. So I think I'm very much considering that. I was going to touch on that Chilwell as well. So it looks like from the initial reports he'll be out for at least this year, and there's potential it could be longer. I think they need to make a decision basically after they've got the full assessment through if they need to do any more treatment, operation or anything. And there's possibility it could be out for majority of the season, so we'll wait for an update on that. But short term, I wouldn't be banking on him. Definitely don't be transferring him in. I think ideally you'd be transferring him out going into this Christmas period where you need to probably use that funds. You could even do like a straight swap to a James, for example. But definitely it might cause slight issues. I was very much, we'll get to the transfer plans later on, feel like I've got to the point of no return where I need to go for a Chelsea fullback, so it's made my decisions a bit more difficult, easy, but we'll discuss them as we get to that point. Would you be going for that kind of structure as well, Charlie? Would you say investing in the defence is the way to be going currently?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you guys have covered it, and it is something that I've been on for, I think, pretty much since my wildcard. I think before this season, or maybe even a little bit before that, generally speaking, my setup would be I would have one premium defender, which is usually Trent, one kind of mid-price defender, and then one cheaper defender. But now we're in the situation where I think the last 5-6 weeks I've played at least a 4 at the back, and that's with 3 premium defenders and then either a 4th premium defender or Livramento. And yeah, it's definitely the combination of both. It's the fact that they're doing so well and there's such a lack of real viable striking options. It just makes it no brainer really just to put the money there, because otherwise you're putting, even like me, I've got that, and I've still got Vardy basically just getting 2 points every week, even though he's worth 10 million. Really, I should be trying to move that around, but it feels like we've got money to spend, because the defenders, despite the fact that they're effectively premium in their position, but relatively speaking, compared to the midfield and attack, they're actually cheap compared to those. So yeah, I can't see any better way of spending your money than putting it into the defence.
I think the only main issue you'd have with that is if we get one of these premium forwards that come into form again. Obviously, at the minute, got Ronaldo is not really in form. Lukaku is injured. Touched on Vardy there. Like, if Vardy scores a few goals, I'm sure you'll want that with him still in your team. In the next fixture, I think they've got Watford. Then it kind of might be back on the radar, but Vardy's just that kind of streaky player. You just have to get him at the right time, don't you? But I feel especially coming, I think it's at game week 16, around that period when United's fixtures turn, I feel like a few people might be jumping back to Ronaldo, and Lukaku is probably a game or two away from getting back to fitness. So we might be going back to one of those premium strikers at some point, and especially, well, we're getting nearly to the middle of the season where we might get a second wild card available, but if you set up that structure to have that big at the back, it's quite difficult without having three or four moves maybe to get that value back up front. So I think it's a good point to go for the defence, but we need to be wary of the options later on. But as of now, I think you can't go wrong with that defence, as we've said about the value and some of the great returns we're getting at the back at this point in time.
I think just on that, because that's always been my approach as well, is that I want to have some flexibility to kind of move as I need to. But at the same time, I was just trying to think in terms of looking forward and kind of the long-term plan in terms of actually which of those premium strikers am I going to want to get in, even if they are starting to score every week. Firstly, I don't think, I've said before my doubts over the Chelsea striker position in a Tuchel setup. I don't necessarily think they're the kind of pivotal role. It does seem to be, if you watch any Chelsea game, it's always those wing backs that get in the completely free space and get their shots off on goal, which is why they've obviously ended up doing so well recently. Maybe that does start to change a little bit when Lukaku comes back in. But even when he was, playing before he got injured, it was a similar sort of story. He wasn't really getting goals. He was kind of the hold-up man and playing other people in. You touched on Ronaldo as well, and yeah, I've not really got any confidence in him as a consistent forward, especially not at the amount that he is. And then you've maybe got Kane, and I'd much rather have Son as in my team anyway. So I am definitely again, it's another case of kind of having to get out of or educate yourself out of something that you just stuck to for so long, where every season I normally try and keep some level of flexibility to be able to move to whoever I can or anyone in the game within one or two moves. But I'm starting to feel like there's not even a need to at this point, in terms of I don't feel like even if they started getting a few goals, I would even want them because of this value that we have elsewhere.
Disagree with that one, to be fair, at the same time. Yeah, I think, even if it's Lukaku, it's a bit early to go in for him until he gets... You just need a run of games to see Lukaku, how he fit into that. I'd say in this run they've had now, he would have got more returns than Havertz, in my opinion, playing in that position, because we've not particularly seen Lukaku have that good run of fixtures where he can maximise those returns. Like, I know he did well against Arsenal, but apart from that, we didn't see a great deal from him. But we've not been able to see him in that great run of fixtures, so it probably could become an option later in the season when he's got another good run. But I think it's quite different Chelsea's run. I think looking forward, City and United's runs are quite decent, so that's why Ronaldo kind of flashed to mind when I thought about that. I think we've covered the results pretty well there. I think we've basically touched on most of them there, to be fair. So not much more to talk about there, but I'm sure we'll talk about certain players in the second part. So are we ready for some quiz time?
Always.
Yep.
The brain is warmed up from last time, Charlie. So I've got the score is 6-5 to Charlie currently. So I'm expecting it to be levelled up as usual. So
Our best.
We are going for a similar style to last week, which, well, we did 2 example questions. So if you did listen to it back, Sam, you should have a kind of idea of how it's going to go. But we have done a similar kind of one to this before. So I'm going to give you both, where you take it in turns, you've got three goes each. So I'm going to give you both 5 players, and you need to put them in order of FPL points so far this season. So please give me them in order, highest first. If Charlie made a comment about the points, if you get them in the correct... Like, if you get 3 out of 5 in the correct position, but you've got like 2 the wrong way around, I will still give you like 3 out of 5. If you get them all in order, I will give you a bonus point. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Roughly. We'll give it a go. See how we get on.
I was going to let Charlie go first anyway, so
Yeah,
you
fine.
can see how it is from that. So
Fine.
I'm going to give you 5 players, Charlie. So your 5 players are Tielemans, Mason Mount, Bernardo Silva, Jota, and Benrahma. So I need you to order those 5 from highest points to lowest points for me, if possible.
So sorry, say that again. Tielemans, Mount, do you say Jota, Bernardo Silva, and
Benrahma.
Benrahma?
Hey, you might need a bit of paper to write the 5 down.
Yeah, I'm just noting them. Well, I'm pretty confident. Should I be as confident as I am? I think because of Benrahma's start, I think he racked up enough to be top of that list. So I'm going to put him as first.
Okay, I'm going to take your order and then I'll give you feedback when you've given me all 5.
So Benrahma. Then it's probably between. Jota's probably up there, but yeah, I don't think he's played every game. He does play well when he starts. Bernardo's been really consistent and basically plays every game, so I guess that's probably an argument for him to be up there as well. Tielemans, I don't think will be that far up. I'm going to go with Jota second, Bernardo third, and then I've got Mount and Tielemans left, haven't I? Mount's been a bit of a one-hit wonder with just that one game where he scored a bunch, whereas Tielemans I feel like is a bit more ticking along. So I'll go Tielemans and then Mount.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I'd put Mount in there because you've got fond memories of getting him in the right game week.
I'm pretty sure either we talked about him last week or maybe the week before, and I kind of overestimated his points because of that one week.
Yeah. So you've got 3 in the correct position. You had Bernardo Silva and Jota the wrong way round. So Bernardo Silva's got more than Jota. You kind of had the logic there, but then you chose Jota anyway.
Follow through.
Yeah. So you get 3 out of 5 there. So you had Benrahma at the top, and then Tielemans was 4th, and Mount was 5th.
Okay.
So 3 points for those 3 in the right position. So did that structure make sense for you, Sam? If I give you 5 names?
Yeah, go for it.
Right. So I'll give you
that already.
Yeah. So your 5 names are Bruno, Gallagher, Mane, Rafinha, and Bowen.
Bruno, Gallagher, Mane, Rafinha, and Bowen.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, I know who's top of this list. And I know who's second in this list.
Good stuff.
So I'm going to go for first is Mane. Second is Gallagher.
Okay.
Bruno is going to be quite far down this list. I'd be surprised if he was third. And Rafinha has missed a lot of games. And Bowen has only really come good in the last few weeks, so this is tough. Okay. I don't know the other ones, so this is just going to be sort of educated risk-taking, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, based on the fact that Benrahma was quite so prolific at the start of the season, I would be surprised if Bowen was third. Rafinha's done well, but I don't know if he's done if he's really tore the ground up enough, and he has missed a few games through injury. So I'm going to go for tough one, this. Okay, I'm going to go for Bruno in third.
Okay.
Owen in fourth. And Rafinha fifth, I think. Mane, Gallagher, Bruno, Bowen, Rafinha.
Okay, that's locked in.
Locked in.
Yep.
Locked in.
So Mane and Gallagher were correct. as expected. Rafinha was correct. He was last, but you had Bruno and Bowen the wrong way round. So Bowen 57 and Bruno 54.
Double sigh.
So close, double B as well. So you've managed to get 3 out of 5 as well.
Of
What do you know? Shock.
Right, so you both had a midfielder question, so back to Charlie, and we'll move on to defenders. So your 5 defenders, Charlie, you've got Livramento, Van Dijk, Chilwell, Cancelo, and Duffy.
Okay, just write them down. Well, obviously Livramento's the cult pick, but I don't think he would be above Chilwell anymore. Surely Chilwell's absolutely smashed it lately. But then Alonso, when did Chilwell actually come in? Because Alonso started the season. It wasn't for a while before Chilwell. Okay. And Cancelo's obviously been just amazing. So Cancelo's definitely going to be first.
Okay.
Second. Van Dijk. I've just got no real concept of how well Van Dijk's done. I don't even know if he's got any attacking returns or whether it's just been consistent clean sheets or whatever. They've done quite well for clean sheets. I would assume I'm going to go Chilwell's second. Livramento third, Van Dijk fourth, Duffy fifth.
Is that what you want to go with?
Yeah.
Sorry, I said them all so quick, I was making sure I had them in the right order.
Sorry,
so Cancelo, Chilwell, Livramento, Van Dijk, and Duffy.
Yeah.
Okay. So Cancelo is correct. Duffy is correct. The other 3 are not correct.
Oh.
So the order was, I'll just do the middle 3. So second was Van Dijk with one more point than Chilwell on 55.
Okay.
Chilwell with 54 and Livramento with 49. Just for completion, Duffy had 43 as well. So just 2 points there.
It's weird that we never consider Van Dijk, do we? But then
I literally looked at his stats as well. He's only got 1 assist. It's not like he's been getting like big attacking returns either, so you don't really notice him. But he's literally, I think he's played every single game.
And he probably, I guess that makes sense. And all the clean sheets and stuff.
Using that logic that you said with Chilwell as well, that he didn't start the season, so he's had them few big point hauls, but he's not been there the whole season. So unfortunately, 2 points there. So if we
Door is open.
Yeah, it's open. Is he going to?
Door is open.
Walk through it or slam it shut? Right. So your defenders are Sam, Reece James, Pinnock, who is from Brentford, Ben White, Trent, and Cresswell.
James, Pinnock, White, Trent, Cresswell.
Yep.
Okay. Right, let's go for Mr. Alexander-Arnold as number 1.
Okay.
Locked in. Let's go for... Sorry, you said Reece James, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, Reece James is number 2.
Okay.
Locked in. Cresswell as number 3. Locked in.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I actually put Pinnock in my FPL draft team a few weeks ago, so he must have been doing well. I'm just going to Pinnock 4 and White 5.
Okay. So he's walked straight through the door there. 5 out of 5.
Oh, 5.
Through the door, coat off, hang his hat. Job done.
That's
Put the kettle on.
a mighty 6-pointer with that bonus point for getting them all.
Oh, yeah.
I feel that was an easier 5 than Charlie's 5, to be fair. The first 3 of that pick themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, Cresswell was only 6 point in front of the Pinnock. Like Trent and
Okay,
James.
fair enough.
Mate, yeah, I knew you'd get Trent and James. I think the other three you might have got confused on. And so I'd say that was the same kind of with Charlie's, because he had Cancelo and Duffy, wasn't he? That you knew was top and bottom. But it just depends how you see it. Probably that bit of knowledge about Pinnock probably helped you a bit there as well.
Yeah, literally, I put him in the just before Brentford went on their losing run. Actually, I put him in the fantasy draft. So
Yeah. Right, so it looks like the pressure's on you, Charlie, that you literally probably need to get them all in the right order here, because it's currently 9-5 to Sam. So you need that 6-pointer to put it in there, really. So your 5 strikers are Dennis, Antonio, Jimenez, Vardy, and Ronaldo.
Okay. Well, I can safely say Antonio will be top of this list because, yeah, no, I mean, to be fair, these are all going to be fairly low scoring anyway. But yeah, I'm happy with Antonio at top.
Okay.
I feel like we talk about Dennis a fair amount, at least in our Discord, and not necessarily on the pod, but because I don't think he's necessarily an attractive option to go for, but was obviously a good value option. But
it's normally because Daggers has him on his bench. That's most of the time we're talking about it.
But I'm pretty sure Vardy is second. I just feel like I spend a fair amount of time just looking at forwards, thinking why is no one actually any good? But I can always just see Antonio and Vardy at the top. So yeah, I think Vardy second.
Okay.
So then I've got who left? Dennis, Jimenez, Ronaldo.
Yep.
I'm actually pretty certain Ronaldo's the bottom of these because obviously he didn't come in till late and he's not really done a lot. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Dennis and Jimenez are above Ronaldo. So I'll put Ronaldo 5th.
Okay.
So it's down to which way round is Dennis and Jimenez. I have no idea.
Could be crucial, though. It could be the crucial decision. You never know.
It could be. Let's think about this. I feel like Jimenez has done better of late, but obviously he didn't do so well in that original run of fixtures, which they should have done well in. They were taking lots of shots, but he didn't get anything. Dennis has kind of done stuff in batches. I seem to remember he either has like a complete dull game week or has a good one. So it's either the consistency against the sporadic man.
Dilemmas.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be close between. I think it's probably close between all the forwards because none of them have done overly well. I'm going to go Dennis and then Jimenez.
You sure?
So Dennis 3rd, Jimenez 4th. Just because I feel like we talk about or Dennis, his name pops up more than Jimenez.
Always comes up, yeah. So you're going with Antonio, Vardy, Dennis, Jimenez, and Ronaldo. Yeah. Okay. So he's snuck the door slightly open again because that is correct. All in the correct order. So that's a 6-pointer for you there. So
yeah, it could be a consolation 6-pointer, but we'll see.
Or you never know. So Antonio actually only has one more point than Vardy. So Antonio 63, Vardy 62, Dennis 54, Jimenez 51, and Ronaldo 43.
That's interesting. I was quite confident Antonio was above Vardy, but not obviously I shouldn't have been.
I think it's because he's been there for so long, but then the last few weeks, well, Vardy hasn't been doing great the last few weeks. But it's closer than you might think there. Speaking of Vardy, we've got Hills in the chat as well. We've got a shout out earlier as well because he seems to be performing well in the league. So we're watching out for you, Hills, in the league. You're coming for Charlie and Sam. So make or break. And the fact that Sam said the last one was easier, I've made up for it with this one.
Nice.
So
that's what we like to hear.
The current score is 11-9 to Charlie. So you
So I
need
need 3.
Yeah, you need 3 or 2, and we're going to a standard tiebreak.
No worries.
So your 5 strikers are Danny Ings, Tony, Gabriel Jesus, Aubameyang, and Benteke.
God. Good luck with that.
Oh my. Right, just to clarify, Danny Ings, Tony, Gabby Jesus, Aubameyang, and Big Ben.
Yep. Like what Charlie said, when you're going for the attackers, there's not a huge amount to separate them anyway, so they do tend to be the harder ones.
Right. This is going to be tricky.
I bet you didn't wish you said that while someone were using it.
Right. Well, I'm pretty confident that I know who the top 2 are, but I don't know necessarily what order they're in. So that would be a bit of a guess. But I think the top 2 of those 5 are Tony and Jesus.
Okay.
Certainly don't think Benteke is in the top 5. Sorry, he's in the top 3.
I can say he's got
I hope he's in the top 5. I hope he's in the top 5. Well,
biggest curveball.
Sickest trap ever.
That
Yeah.
is difficult.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll come back to those 2, assuming that they are the top 2. I can't think. Maybe Ings in 3rd. I don't know. Can't think Aubameyang's done too much. So I'm kind of okay. Those top 2 there. I think I'm going to go with this. Isn't so. It's going to be either Tony or Jesus in what I assume is just going to have to be flip a coin order. I imagine Jesus has probably got more assists than Tony. I don't think he's got any goals. God, this is toxic. This is toxic.
You could come back to those top 2, couldn't you, if you think that they're the top 2 and have a look at the other 3?
Yeah. The problem is, it's just the same dilemma between 3. Man. So Benteke, I don't think Benteke is last. I think that's too obvious for Benteke to be last. And I feel like Ings has outscored Aubameyang.
Okay.
So I'm actually going to work from 5th up. I'm going to say Aubameyang is 5th.
Okay.
And then these 2 are, the guy who started the season on form and who's currently in form. I'm going to go for Ings. Oh, no. I'm going to go Benteke 4th.
Okay.
Ings 3rd.
Okay.
Tony 2nd, Jesus 1st, I think. That Jesus Tony one is that's just flip a coin.
This is very dramatic.
Just trying to think, man. Tony hasn't scored points in what feels like so long apart from last week.
So the current order you gave me is Jesus, Tony, Ings, Benteke, and Aubameyang. Would you like to lock that in or make any changes to that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm only going to spend 2 minutes going around in a circle over those 2. Jesus, Tony, Ings, Benteke, Aubameyang.
Okay, so that's locked in. So I'll tell you the overall quiz had been decided by 1 point either way. So I'll tell you Aubameyang was 5th, so that gets you a point. That was correct.
Very good. Good shout.
In 4th was Benteke, and sorry. No, sorry. I'm just getting confused between the list now. Benteke was 3rd and you put him 4th. So you got Ings and Benteke the wrong way around. Yeah, so you didn't get the point. No, sorry. I said it the wrong way around. I'm looking at two sets of lists now, and I'm like, oh no.
This is a trap.
It's
Yeah.
all down to the
So-
Jesus
Yeah,
Tony
so
dilemma.
it's all down to the Jesus and Tony dilemma.
So for clarity, Ings was 4th.
Yeah, Ings was 4th. So let me go up. So Aubameyang had 40 points. Ings had 41.
Oh my
Benteke
God.
had 42.
Oh, come on.
So unfortunately, you got Benteke and Ings the wrong way around. So you've got 1
We got
point.
1 out of those famous 3.
Yeah, so it's now 11-10. So if you get Jesus and Tony the right way round, you'll win 12-11. If they're the wrong way round, you will lose 11-10. So I will tell you that the player in first had 50 points and the player in second had 44 points. In second, you put Tony, and in second, it was Tony.
Nice.
And Jesus
Yes.
top with 50. So literally,
That's amazing. It's the natural order of things.
I know when I'm looking at these answers, I'm like, you're literally going up. You got Aubameyang, I'm like, okay, that's 1, and then you got the Ings and Benteke wrong, and I'm like, oh no. It's more dramatic from my point of view there as well when I'm doing the scoring at the same time. I think that's what threw me off on the other ones. I'm like, because I had 2 lists, and I'm like, they're very identical, but there's 2 of them the wrong way around. But yeah, Sam takes the win. 12 points to 11, and it makes it 6-6 overall. At a squeaky bum time there.
6-6. What do you know?
Love to see it. At least it needs a tiebreak question, but we're going to need like an ultimate one at the end of the season, I'm sure. So we will move on to that. Let Sam catch his breath after that, and we'll move on to the fixtures that we've got for the next week coming up. And I think before we actually get onto the fixtures, I think we'll dive into kind of what our transfer plans are and probably discuss a few positions and stuff that's going on. So, Charlie, how are you currently looking? Have you got, I think you said you've got 2 free transfers, didn't you? And what are your current plans to be making?
Yeah, I've got 2 free transfers. I'm actually not too, I'm quite happy with my first 11, but it does depend on various injury news and updates. As always, again, highlighting that it's always good to wait until those late press conferences during the week, and obviously particularly with the European football going on. So that relates to obviously Rafinha. We mentioned, like you said, Will, he's been seen back in training, so it should be okay. So I'm happy to leave him for a little bit. We alluded to last week the fact that their run does get quite bad coming up, so eventually he will move out. But if he's fit, I'm happy to keep playing him for now. There's been this doubt over Foden. He's not in the squad tonight, and apparently isn't quite fully fit. So I think if more gets suggested that he won't play this weekend, I will probably look to take him out. And that would likely be, well, the initial move that I was thinking was Jota. Again, this all depends on what comes out, because obviously there was I can't remember if he went off or it was just at the end of the game they confirmed he had a bit of a niggle. So it does depend what's going on. But I think he's on the bench tonight for the European game. So
yeah, he did go off with a little knock, I think, in the previous game, but he's on the bench, like you said.
So that implies that he's fine, and also obviously that suggests that they don't want to risk him because of obviously Firmino not being around at the moment. But again, I'm not sure what the latest on that is, so that kind of plays a factor in as well. And if it's not him, then I would want it to be him, just because if I don't go with him, I feel like the next obvious midfield move is going to Son. But that's kind of the move that both of you guys have Son now, so it feels like it would be better to go a different way. Actually, I think where I can, because I have these 2 free transfers. That's the thing. So if I were to try and get to Son, I would need to use my second transfer to get there. And it would probably be with an Antonio downgrade, just because obviously he's the one with the bad fixture this week compared to Vardy, and Vardy probably has a better kind of medium-term run of fixtures, whereas Antonio the West Ham fixtures aren't great in the short term, but then get better again towards the end of December, I think. So I think the likely one is going to be probably Foden to Jota if those kind of injury news bits that I've mentioned hold up. If not, then it may be looking potentially more like maybe a Diaz to Alonso potentially. That might be something I try and capitalise on, this Chilwell injury, depending on, again, any further confirmation about how long Chilwell is out and what the kind of results of the scan are. Because you would think that kind of locks Alonso in for basically all of December. If he can play all those games, because if not, they don't really have another alternative unless they maybe play Azpilicueta as a sort of on the wrong side, or if they play one of the more attacking players in the left wing back slot instead. But we've seen that Alonso scores points when he does get consistent games. So yeah, that might be kind of my backup option if the others kind of fall through, dependent on injury news.
Yeah, I know when Chilwell went off injured yesterday, they did bring Azpilicueta on at left back, but Tuchel did say after the match that they actually did that by mistake because they were going to rest Reece James. They were about to take Reece James off and rest him, and Azpilicueta was already warmed up, so he put him on at left back. So hopefully it would mean that Alonso would be starting going into the league. But I've got slight doubts about Alonso being able to play that amount of fixtures in that space of time if Chilwell is completely out. So I feel like there still will be a bit of rotation, and it's been a bit suspect sometimes defensively, and I think they'll have a lot more faith having Azpilicueta there. So it's not 100% guaranteed he'll play every single game. But I'm very much on the same. It seems like you're discussing my transfer options as well, minus the Foden. I was kind of. I had him before. I kind of touched on it last week. I felt it was too late to be going for a Chelsea fullback. But now, like when they're both returning, or have been returning, obviously Chilwell will be out, and like surely I just need to bite the bullet and get one of them in. So I was very much on the fence which one to be getting in, and it's very tempting now to go for Alonso. Especially because, from my point of view, he'll be there for like 3 weeks. So I can take that risk for 3 weeks, and if it's not going well, if he's getting rotated over December, I can just get rid of him at that point anyway, and if I need to move to Reece James. So I can see the upside there that I'll potentially catch. And then I've got kind of a few transfers in my head. Another one was Jota, potentially, because I've got in my head, as we've discussed vigorously, I think last week as well, about Callum Wilson. I'm aiming for him to be my transfer next week. So I've got one transfer to use this week. So I'm very much in the fence between a Chelsea fullback, depending on how adventurous I want to be. It'll be Alonso or James. And then potentially it could be Jota, but I'm not kind of, as we touched on, triple Liverpool, do you want to be going for that? But they have got Southampton, so I'm a bit on the fence between those two. So we very much both of us sound like we're on the fence, and for that Alonso one, it's become very tempting that I could possibly go for that. But I've only got that one free transfer that I'll be using, and a lot of money in the bank. I think I had ideas to make sure I had funds in the bank in case I wanted to go for Kane, but I don't fancy doubling up on Spurs at the minute, so I think I'm going to dodge that bullet. How are your plans coming together, Sam? What are your ideas going forward for this game week?
Yeah, well, the Chilwell injury is certainly inconvenient for the plans. So I think it's pretty obvious in my mind that I'm either go one of two ways. I'm either going to just do a straight swap Chilwell for James. I've got more than enough money in the bank to be able to just do that and see how we go. But I've already got Mendy representing the Chelsea clean sheet. And although Chelsea have got Manchester United, so it's not a nailed-on clean sheet, but Manchester United is so poor. Manchester United so poor defensively. I actually can't see a situation where Reece James doesn't get in with a big chance on goal, particularly with what's going to be. I assume Varane's back for United, but I mean whoever he's with.
I'm going to say not necessarily that he's back. He's not.
In which case,
so it could be.
In which case, yeah. I mean, if you've got Bailly and Lindelof, Reece James just seems like an absolute necessity. In which case, I'm tempted to go triple Chelsea at the back and maybe do like Mankilo to Rudiger as well while I'm at it. Overall, I don't mind I don't really mind just rolling Antonio and Jimenez as strikers. The midfield's pretty much set. I'm fine with Trossard staying in. Hopefully Rafinha is back. I'm not sure what the official verdict is, but hopefully he'll be back for the weekend.
He should be back.
Salah and Son. Obviously, I don't want to start Livramento. Having Mankilo hasn't played in the last two fixtures for Newcastle and they've conceded 4 goals, so he might come back in. Who knows? but really need a certainty in there in that other defensive position. So I'm thinking James is probably a good one. And I am ever so slightly tempted towards Sergio Reguilon for Spurs, just because of how I thought he looked really good in the second half against Leeds. But having said that, away at Burnley, they'll get roughed up a bit there, and I'm not sure Reguilon's the kind of guy that is going to like getting Chris Wood in his arm in his ribs from a corner. So I don't really know how well he's going to do there, but we'll see. Ultimately, I think it's going to have to just be Reece James comes in for Chilwell, which is a bit of a shame because I had hoped to either roll a transfer this week to get two for next week. That was my plan A. Then I was going to drop down Antonio and boost up one of the other defenders to be able to run either a 4 or a 5 at the back if I wanted to. But it's not the end of the world, I suppose. So yeah, the Mendy James pivot for the double Chelsea at the back seems fine. Yeah, it's like I said at the start of the pod, we're sort of starting to see the shift towards a bit more of a template at the back for quite a lot of managers now, really. And then we've got the dreaded African Cup of Nations drawing ever closer. So it'll be interesting to see what we do when that comes around with certain Egyptian in midfield.
Yeah, it's clearly Origi time when we get to that point. Origi or Minamino, the value picture.
Yeah, Minamino time. It might well be Minamino time.
Or at least a minimum it'll be Jota time. I'm not sure many people go as differential with those two ones, but you never know.
We're all going to have like 5 million in our bank at that point because where are you going to put that money into?
Well, we just need like a January signing, like comes in the 1st of January, who's going to cost us like 13 million. Like Messi thinks he wants to come on loan while they're in African Cup of Nations. Yeah.
All right, calm down. Just because you got rid of Oli doesn't mean Messi wants to come over. All right,
I don't want him. Too many egos in one team. Going slightly off topic there. I was just going to make a comment. So I think you kind of mentioned you're going to play Antonio. Are you going to be playing Antonio as well, Charlie, against City?
No, absolutely not. He's going to be firmly on my bench. I think Antonio's just in my team by way of not having anyone else to really switch to as a viable option, in my opinion. And yeah, like we said, I think the only one I would probably at the moment consider switching to would be Wilson, but the fixtures aren't good enough for long enough for me to consider doing that. Whereas Antonio's longer term are just better. The only thing I'd consider now would be downgrading him, but then again, that would be losing a playing player's slot. So yeah, he's currently sitting second on my bench behind Livramento, but I'll probably swap them round.
Yeah.
So he'll be first on my bench. But that's as exciting as it gets for Antonio on my team.
Right, sorry. We're just going to appreciate greatness when we see it. Thiago Alcantara has just scored an absolute banger for Liverpool in the Champions League. They're 1-0 up. And City are losing as well. So there's live Champions League updates on the Wilbur Talks podcast for you.
It's about time he turned up, isn't it, to be fair, Thiago? Sorry, I lost my chain of thought there. Yeah, so, if I bring in a Chelsea fullback, Antonio will be relegated to the bench on my team as well, along with Livramento. At the minute I've got... the current plan is actually to get rid of Livramento altogether because I feel like he's probably got to the point where I don't particularly see much value in him anymore, and there's other places I can go for. So I'm actually going to keep a Marty for now, just because I can get more value out of taking Livramento out, and Amati will be chopped when it comes to the wild card. And Amati has actually been playing a few games, but Leicester don't look very good defensively. But at 3.9 million, he can rot on the bench for me. So it's going to be a bench of Antonio, Brownhill, and Amati, I think. Because I feel like playing Amati against Watford, but Watford seem to be able to score goals, so I'm still not convinced playing him either. So I might even relegate, like you have said, Charlie. Antonio might be further down the bench. But we shall see on that one. So let's have a look at the fixtures going forward for this week. Unfortunately, we haven't got a podcast derby this week. We'll have to wait for next week, but it couldn't be too bad. I think we kind of touched on your game, didn't we, Charlie, that you got Newcastle. I think you'd be quietly confident. Hope you'd be able to get a result in that game. But obviously, new manager bounce, as we like to call it, Newcastle. You're slightly scared for that game?
Only as much as I am with any Arsenal game. I think, yeah, like I said earlier, I think the fact, yes, it's a new manager bounce for Newcastle, but I don't think that affects them defensively at all. I don't think they become more solid because they've got Howe in charge. If anything, it's the opposite. So I would hope that helps in terms of Arsenal's maybe in its like kind of inability to, like both me and Sam were saying earlier about Arsenal in front of goal against Liverpool. Arsenal don't tend to put away or kind of put the chances in that we should. It's usually just the result of good build-up play between the likes of Saka and Smith Rowe, and so I would hope the fact that Newcastle are quite vulnerable defensively, that should play into Arsenal's hands, because our defence has improved. 4-0 against Liverpool not included. So yeah, I think quite quietly confident, but we'll see. Anything. I'm still under the thoughts of anything can really happen in any Arsenal game at this stage. But hopefully they'll use this as an opportunity to bounce immediately back from a poor result, and put away a team that have been very leaky. So it should offer the opportunity if they want to take it.
Back to you being either the first or the last game of the week, so you are kicking off the game week again, as we like to see. And one of the 3 o'clock games is Sam's team back in action. Quite a quick turnaround, actually, considering they're playing tonight. You've got to be pretty confident to be able to take Southampton down, Sam?
Well, considering Southampton had a really poor result against Norwich, yes, long and short, expect nothing but a comfortable win.
Yeah, you'd be disappointed if you lose to a team that's lost to Norwich as well. Well, not particularly good in that game, the Norwich, but you never know. Yeah, I think that's a strange quirk about this game week as well, that there's more games on Sunday at 2 o'clock than there is at Saturday at 3 o'clock, which I don't think I've ever seen before. I'm not sure the logic behind having 4 games at 2 o'clock on Sunday and only one of them's on TV. It seemed a bit strange to me. But so there isn't particularly a lot of games on at 3 o'clock. You've got the Liverpool game, got Norwich against Wolves, which I'm banking on Semedo finally giving me some value by keeping a clean sheet, but I'm sure he won't.
I don't think they will. No clean sheet for Wolves there.
Well, he can finally get this goal that he promised me for like the 3 game weeks where he should have scored a sitter.
2 assists for Jimenez.
Jimenez to go like just vanish and not be there on the pitch, and Semedo 3 assists, Alton Wang for a hat trick would be the perfect game week. I'm still having. I need like one of those combinations where I feel like one of the best feelings in the game is where you get the assist and the goal from both of your assets. It's a bit different when it's like Trent and Salah, because everyone's got Trent and Salah. But I remember last season James Justin doing it to Vardy, so I need recreations of that for Wolves. But we can live and dream. See how that one goes. And Crystal Palace Villa could be a decent game as well. We'll see how Gerrard sets up away from home. And Crystal Palace seem to be giving it a go against anyone at the minute. No one considering, since they've got no value up front, going for a bit of Christian Benteke? Not floating anyone's boat at the minute?
I feel, well...
I mean, do you think Benteke's a little bit overpriced for what he offers?
What is he, about 6 million?
I think it's like I think he was 6.7 when I looked the other day.
Yeah,
I think there has to come, if he carries on the form that he's on, I think he has to come into our thoughts. We have to put out of our mind the fact that he's kind of just become this bit of a, I don't know, this kind of myth of a player that we kind of everyone just makes fun of.
He's got a decent little run, to be fair, coming up.
Exactly.
Well. Yeah, it could be a wildcard pick. When I'm on my wildcard, I might actually iron him up. He's got.
Come on. We can't be serious.
The way they're playing, and the fact that we're kind of crying out for a decent striker at that price, it's not completely implausible if he carries on like he is now. And there's no reason to suggest he won't, based on the way that Palace are playing. I mean, not directly because of Benteke, but just the way that Palace are much more free flowing and much more attacking. I think he just benefits from the players around him. it does have to be said though. I watched back the goals that he scored last week. One was a deflection that then went onto the post and went in, and then the other one was just a kind of fairly straightforward kind of squared ball across and shot in. So yeah, he's not necessarily scoring the best of goals, but I think, like I say, that's kind of a result of the improvements in the Palace team in general and their play. So yeah, we can't go overboard because we know this is Benteke, but it might be another one where we have to just think about things with a fresh mind and not with the knowledge of everything that's happened in the past.
Yeah, watch list for 3 games. Get him in on the wildcard on 16. He's got Everton, Southampton, Watford, Spurs, and Norwich. Never know. Not a bad differential at 2.2%.
I think it's a sad state of the forwards in the game
Yeah.
that Benteke is the most exciting option at this point.
Yeah, like literally, you only really consider him when it's like a double game week and we've got decent fixtures normally, but it's come to scraping the barrel at this point to see if we can find a little gem. But I'm just imagine hat-trick from Benteke, 2% owned. Fine. Never know. But yeah, we'll swiftly move on from that one. So the late game on Saturday is Brighton against Leeds, which, again, it's probably going to be another tight game. It seems to be, again, quite a lot of tight games this week. Hopefully Rafinha's back, as we mentioned, but I can't see Leeds getting a whole amount of joy at Brighton at home. They seem to be, except for, I think they had that City game, didn't they, when they came to Brighton. Weren't great defensively, but apart from that, you expect Brighton to be pretty solid at the back. Anyone fancy a bit of Lamptey in the near future? I've seen he's back playing. I'm just throwing out everyone now, aren't I? I'm just bringing it back. I think it's 4.4 million.
It's free firing from the hip. This is reckless.
I think it's a valid point though that we I think like we've said, we're kind of so quickly forming this template that it's not a bad idea to start considering. I think we have to be careful what differentials we're considering. But I think it is good to start considering these. But I think specifically on Lamptey, the biggest problem, I absolutely love him as a player because he's so attacking. He's basically just a right winger. The biggest problem with him is going to be his fitness and injury potential because of this kind of run of fixtures. I can't imagine he starts all of them. He must, of anyone, he's going to be getting quite a few benchings, I imagine. But yeah, I guess particularly in defence, you can't really stray from the main big point scorers at this point.
It's going to be a good pod when I'm on wildcard. If you think I'm firing out random names now, it's going to be firing left, right, and centre there. Getting ideas.
If you don't have Lamptey and Benteke in your wildcard team, I'll be very disappointed.
I'll have them in the draft, then we don't get confirmed.
In the draft, come on.
Let's just go back to the beginning of the season where you suggested like Townsend, whoever else, from
Gray, Ferran
Everton,
Torres.
Gray, yeah, you should have stuck with your guns.
Yeah, we'll see. There'll be a few. The team's not going to be made up of all of them. We're not going to have 5 of those kind of picks, especially around Christmas, but we'll go for the odd one. Got to have fun with it, haven't you, really? So moving on to the Sunday game. So first one, the actual one that's actually on TV, Brentford against Everton. If people have still got a Tony or an Mbeumo, I'd personally be playing them in this game. What do you guys think about Brentford going forward, Sam? Would you be hanging on to them for now, or would you be getting rid of a Tony or an Mbeumo if you had them?
Well, I did get rid of Mbeumo last week. I actually think Mbeumo's a little bit unlucky, to be honest. His underlying numbers are still not too bad, considering he hasn't really returned in a few weeks. But I think Everton got more holes at the back than a colander. I think there's definite opportunity for Brentford to score, and I still think no matter what happens, that when Brentford do score, there's just such a high chance that the involvement in that goal comes from, Brentfad. From Tony. Tony in particular, yeah. That I don't think it's a bad pick at all. I was talking about the fact that I didn't really think Reguilon fancied getting roughed up by him. Maybe Chris Wood isn't a terrible shout, And the Burnley at home against Spurs. Spurs definitely sorting their life out a little bit under Conte, but at the same time are prone to conceding the odd goal, and they've looked vulnerable from set pieces. So I would probably be more likely to be going Chris Wood than Tony personally. But
so did you just laugh
at me? For either of them. So
did you just laugh at me saying Benteke and then you suggested Chris Wood? Is that
I think Chris Wood's more viable. Chris Wood's a more viable option for the next couple of weeks than Benteke.
Fair play. I'm not sure I agree with that one, but yeah, he's another one that you always.
It sounds like
We'll
a
see.
secondary podcast bet in the making. That
Yeah.
one.
We'll see. Sounds like
you're going to have to pick another player as well now, Charlie. So
you all mocked Trossard, and he came good.
In fairness,
I don't think any of us
I don't think we mocked Trossard at all. No.
Well.
Well, I did win the midfielder bet earlier in the season, so I'm pretty confident I'll beat you again on that one. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on that one. I've just lost my fixtures now. Where were we? Yeah, so yeah, you've kind of linked us straight into the next fixture there, Burnley against Spurs. I'm like, what I saw from Spurs, I'm not overly convinced by Son or Kane at this point in time. Obviously, me and Sam have mentioned we've got Son in now, so I assume your plan as well, Sam, is to at least have them in for this week and the 2 game weeks after, and then probably take a view on it at that point because of the playing the fixtures kind of thing. Is that what you're aiming for?
I think so. I think Spurs have just got a really good run of fixtures. I think Son, for me, is probably going to stay until game week 22, depending on how Arsenal run. Just Spurs have just got such a great run of fixtures. Conte's in, new managerial bounce. Son's going to play 90 minutes, or at least a strong 70 minutes. If they do manage to go a few up, then he might come off and get rested. But he's definitely due a goal. He hasn't scored in his last 4 Premier League games.
That's because I brought him in. That's fine.
Yeah, it's definitely due a goal. So I just think it makes sense to have him in. And if I had the funds to be able to move around a little bit, I'd definitely be bringing in Jota. But I'm more than happy with Son in there at the minute. And as I said, I am keeping an eye on Reguilon. I don't think Spurs have quite got enough about them to convince me that he's a better option in terms of getting the clean sheet points, which ultimately is why we've got these players, these defenders in our teams, right? But we'll see. I'm keeping an eye on Reguilon, but little way to go yet to convince me he's the man for the job.
Yeah, I think Charlie meant to comment earlier as well that he's not as keen. Well, he said you have more differential. Is Charlie keeping away from Son because we've both got them? You sure you're not going to get tempted by Kane further down the line to bring him in?
Definitely not Kane. No. if I was going to bring a Spurs player in, it still would be Son. But I think just the fact that particularly Sam has him, and obviously I'm trying to catch Sam at the moment, does make me think I'd maybe just go for Jota instead. And obviously Jota's the cheaper option as well, so sort of value wise as well, there's a potential there. So I think it does depend on, obviously, as I said earlier, really it's kind of going to get dictated by the injury news and what's happening with the players that I've got at the moment.
Yep. We'll see how it turns out. Hopefully for me and Sam it goes well with Spurs, but then they'll have a bigger lead. But you never know, that Jota one. You've seen Sam's plan now, so it's going to be the Jota against Son next few weeks by the sounds of it. But it should be a good
I think
battle.
there's nothing to...
Well, see, I think Jota potentially has the capability to outscore Son in the next 4 or 5 weeks. Liverpool have got a good run of fixtures as well.
Yeah.
We've just got a lot of the big boys out of the way in the last few weeks. So there's definitely, I don't think there's really a massive upper hand on one or the other than the fact that Jota's in a team that are in full flow at the minute, and that Son's potentially going to be in a spot of a similar position if Conte manages to get Spurs to click. So I don't think you're at a significantly lesser position if you go for Jota over Son, or in a better position if you go for Son over Jota. But it's just it's sort of, I think it's sensible if you're in a league situation and you're trying to catch up with someone and they have Son, I think Jota's the move. And if you're in the other position and you've got they've got Jota, then take Son. I think they'll both be viable options over the next few weeks.
Definitely both good options. And obviously with Jota, you got that extra money in the bank. About 3 million-ish, isn't it? 2.5. So spread that around if you want to upgrade your defence as well. But yeah, both definitely viable options. Looking at the next one, I don't know what to make of Leicester at the minute at all. I know Charlie's got Vardy in there, which I'm hoping, well, you're hoping, not me, that he does something against Watford. But Watford seem to be able to score goals. Obviously, they scored a lot against United. It's not difficult. But it wouldn't surprise me if Watford actually managed to get a goal, maybe a result in that game. What are you making of Leicester, and do you think if Vardy keeps blanking, you'll keep him, Charlie?
I think the issue is and we've said it quite a few times now, they're so inconsistent. And particularly that Tielemans injury last week,
Yeah.
or ahead of the game last week, it is really not helpful for just how they kind of tick along. So it kind of really does rely on a much smaller bunch of players to be able for Vardy to be able to get anything. But I think these kind of games are ones where Watford have been very open, and yeah, like I said before, really, Vardy's just kind of still in my squad by way of not really having an alternative to jump to, and not kind of desperately needing the funds elsewhere at the moment. So yeah, I'm not thrilled about having Vardy, but it's a game at home against Watford. I'm not, I'm not going to take him out in that kind of game. I think the only thing that's going to kind of make it easier to take him out is if I've got a specific move that I need funds for, such as if I was moving to Son. But when I'm more likely to make the Jota move instead anyway, I can do that with one free transfer and that without having to downgrade anyone else. So yeah, he's just kind of in my team because that's how everything's set up, and I don't really need to take him out at this point.
Yeah, we touched on it last week as well, didn't we? That realistically, you don't want to be taking him out for a home game against Watford. Like there wasn't obviously you had Chelsea last week, but then if you play in the fixtures, you really want to keep him in. It wasn't an urgent sell, so makes sense, and hopefully the fixture benefits you this game week. Well, only slightly. I don't want you to increase in the lead over me. I was going to say score update, which I'm surprised Sam hasn't gave us that Liverpool have scored again. And
well, yeah, I was just I was sort of waiting to see what happened there. I didn't want to cut you off again.
Yeah, it's fine.
But,
Mr. Salah again.
The best player in the world has notched another one.
Yeah, still on the pitch. We need him to get rested, but clearly not doing that. But yeah, 2-0. I saw City have equalised as well. So decent game there. Yeah. I can't actually remember.
Raheem Sterling.
Yeah, I can say Sterling seems to be slightly back in favour. It might not last long with Pep Roulette, but we shall see. He could be keeping Foden out the team. We'll see about that one. So back to you, Sam, on the next one. Do you not give West Ham any chance going to the Etihad at the weekend?
Yeah, definitely give them a chance. You look at how much resource Man City are investing in this game tonight against PSG, and to be honest, rightly so. Like these are the games that football is about. You've got the most successful club in English football for the last 10 years against the most successful club in the French league. Two titans of football, probably the best three, or in the top two of the best front threes in the top three, if that makes sense, in world football. Just going against each other, hammer and tongs. I think this is what the Champions League is made for. But then you go to West Ham at the weekend, or I think it's at West Ham, right? I don't think it's at the Etihad.
It's at the Etihad.
Okay, fine. Well, it's going to be half empty anyway. So West Ham are going to have a great opportunity to get something there, and they've already proven against big sides this year that they're really plucky, determined, and they want to prove a point that they deserve to be where they are. They're there by merit. So I would definitely not be writing West Ham off at all. I think they've got a good chance of getting something out of that game.
Yeah, but
having said that, City will probably win 3-0.
Yeah, I wouldn't particularly surprised either way, would it? And well, I'm pretty sure West Ham are pretty much guaranteed qualification in the Europa League, so keep an eye out for their lineup as well. Because obviously City are playing tonight, but then West Ham have actually got a game a day later, so fatigue could be a factor, and they haven't got particularly the biggest squad. And I think the fact that it's at the Etihad gives City that extra advantage, so I still expect them to win. Maybe like you mentioned, still think it'll be like 3-0, 3-1. I'm sure, as I think it was Charlie mentioned earlier, I'm sure Antonio will probably scrape a goal just to ruin everyone's clean sheet at City. And if he's on the bench, just the double impact of that. But it should be a decent game now. It'll be interesting to see how West Ham do, especially in the away games. And actually, City have actually just scored again to make it 2-1. Just had a notification on that. So City have turned it around against PSG, so you'd fancy them against West Ham as well. But
also, importantly from the Champions League, Mo Salah's now got his sub off, so he's now on the bench, fresh for the Southampton game.
Did he come on, go off with Jota by any chance? I was looking to see if Jota actually came on for any
He did
minutes or not.
not. Big Divock is on.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how much to think about that with Jota then, but the fact that he's not had any minutes tonight.
I think if he's on the bench, he's got to be fit enough to play.
Yeah.
And if Klopp wanted him to have minutes, he would have been able, to just get back into fitness. Then he would have brought him on. I think he's just been kept on the bench to make sure he's saved because of the lack of Firmino, I would imagine.
Yeah, you probably think so. No, not when you got Divock. You'd be fine, won't you? And then touching on the very last game of the game week, we kind of touched on that we could see a bit of a battering for United. Are you very much convincing Chelsea win, Charlie? Would you be saying Chelsea against United at Stamford Bridge?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Chelsea have been, they kind of just keep plugging away and putting away teams fairly comfortably. Obviously, the sort of difference to that was the Burnley game, but yeah, especially a game against Man United in your current form and particularly defensively the issues that you've got. I can't see anything but a Chelsea win at this point. Maybe you can see Man United grabbing a goal, but other than that, I'd be incredibly surprised if Chelsea didn't win this game fairly comfortably. Particularly after the last two performances as well, Chelsea have put in, like in the league, and then also the game against Juventus yesterday as well. They really look like a real title-winning team at the moment. So I'll be very surprised if there was any upset here.
I'm interested to see how they deal with the injuries. Obviously, we've touched on Chilwell, and I know that Kante went off as well. So Kovacic is also out currently. So I'm interested to see who would be playing with Jorginho in there and wonder if that is a position to possibly target for United. Obviously, got to take some kind of hope into the game, but I feel like you can get Alonso, obviously defensively, and that midfield spot could be potential to get into there. But we've seen it before when you expect nothing from United, as you fully wouldn't from past game weeks and majority of the season or under Ollie's reign in general, that could always sneak a 1-1, you never know. So there is slight hope, but need to get that manager in place, as we mentioned. I think we touched on it earlier that I think Sam would be back in a very similar result, wouldn't you, Sam, that convincing Chelsea win there?
Yeah, for me, 100%.
Cool. I'll keep it with you then. And then, so moving on to captaincy, I'm assuming, do I need to ask this question? Anyone outside of Salah tickle your fancy at all?
No. If you wanted a differential, you could go for Trent. But, I mean, you can't really go. I won't be looking anywhere other than Salah until he goes to the African Cup of Nations, to be honest. And then as soon as he comes back, I'll probably get the armband back again. It's just crazy. His ownership's up at 72.2% live. If you haven't got him, it'd be interesting to know what the percentage of that that have him currently selected as captain, ahead of the next game week. Because I think so many people now, to me, I genuinely haven't thought about captain pick for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Just because I know it's going to be Salah. So having that reassurance, I think, just takes another sort of element of stress of the game out of your mind. Just allows you to enjoy it with messing around with some other thoughts of what you could do over the next couple of weeks with your team. So absolutely no intention to change captain from Salah.
Yeah, definitely at this point, with obviously that high ownership and obviously the form he's in, you kind of can't be differential with that captain, and obviously it takes a bit of one of the aspects away from the game and having different captains. But at this point in time, I think there's probably a few options you could between now and AFCON where you could think about changing the captaincy, but I think a lot of people will do it also out of fear that, as we saw when I captained Havertz, that the rank drop you can have if you don't follow the crowd sometimes, especially with that ownership level, especially when everyone captains him. It tends to be about 180 kind of ELO kind of mark every week, which is very scary to look at, I'd say. I'm assuming very similar for you, Charlie. Anyone outside of Salah for you?
Yeah, I think we can probably cut this segment every week now. I don't think we need it. We can maybe just say if raise it if we're not going to. I think basically what Sam said. I think if I was going to desperately look for an alternative, it would be Trent, and that's basically just Salah, but a little bit behind him. And to be fair, Trent has outscored Salah the last 2 weeks, but yeah, I don't think you can back against Salah in the form he's in. And it's just that level of consistency is just something I don't think we've ever seen before in FPL, at least not for a very long time. So yeah, there's no point even talking about anyone else at this point.
Yeah, it's that consistency in general, isn't it? And I think when you compare them, like you could say City have got a good fixture or Spurs have got a good fixture, for example, but you're already always more confident that Salah's going to return, so that gives you that bit of confidence there. Because I think if you probably get in, I think it's in 2 weeks' time when Spurs play Norwich. I think in any other season, everyone would be on a Spurs asset based on the fixture, but the fact that Salah's on this form, he just puts that doubt in your mind. So you still think the majority of people will still go with Salah, even if it's a more difficult fixture, just because of how he's playing at the minute. And like Sam said, probably definitely the best Premier League player at the minute. Argument of him being high up there in the world as well. Definitely in the top few. But yeah, so yeah, that question is slightly dead for now, but I will bring it up every time and we'll see. I think next week probably you won't be going away from him, but that week after we could have a discussion about it. Was there anything else we wanted to touch on upon those fixtures or anything else in general?
No, good for me.
Oh, I think we're all good.
Good. And I think we're all done, and we hopefully plan it looking ahead to next week. Obviously, I'll talk to you guys about it. We actually go from next week, the game weeks go to like midweek fixtures. So hopefully we can get in a pod between this game week and the next, but we will try our best over the Christmas period. A bit condensed, but we'll try our best to get in what pods we can. Can't promise one every single game week, but we will see how we do there. But we shall see you next week, everybody, and thank you for listening. Have a good rest of your evening.